Chaos ensued in Week 6 when we saw the 49ers and the Eagles, the last two remaining teams in the NFL, lose their first games of the season. The 49ers to the Browns and the Eagles to the Jets. We also almost saw the Bills lose to the Giants on Sunday Night Football in a game that ended in controversy. And that just adds to the list of games that have ended in controversy. We've had a couple of Sunday Night Football games end in controversy in the last couple of weeks. And it's gotten a lot of people talking. What does Week 7 have in store for us? We will soon find out. But before I get to my predictions for Week 7, I want to thank everyone for their support last week and throughout the entire season so far. The channel achieved a milestone last week. We got to 5,000 subscribers. And all 5,000 of you mean a lot to me. Everyone that tuned in last week, your support meant a lot to me, and it means a lot to me every single week. Thank you, everybody, and enjoy the Week 7 predictions. As always, starting things off with Thursday Night Football, Jaguars and Saints, and right away, what sticks out in this matchup? For the Jaguars, the status of Trevor Lawrence, as he got injured towards the end of the Colts game on Sunday. It is a knee injury. He has been limited in practice this week, but playing on Thursday night is still in play for Trevor Lawrence. Travis Etienne has had 191 rushing yards and 4 touchdowns in their last 2 games. The Jaguars are currently on a 3-game winning streak after getting out to a slow start this season. The Jaguars defense is +7 in turnover margin, which is second in the NFL, only behind the 49ers. For the Saints, since returning to the lineup, Alvin Kamara has been getting involved a lot in this Saints offense, and he is just an addition to the playmakers that the Saints already had. We've seen Rashid Shaheed get involved in this Saints offense a couple times this season. If Michael Thomas can stay healthy, Chris Olave can stay healthy, the entire Saints team can stay healthy. I think the Saints, they could make a potential run, as I think they have the playmakers to do it. And their defense hasn't really been talked about as much. At least I haven't heard a lot of people talk about it. The Saints are 5th in total defense. I do think if Trevor Lawrence plays in this game, I think the Jaguars have what it takes to win this game. But if he doesn't, and if it's C.J. Beathard under center, then I'm going to pick the Saints. And with Trevor Lawrence being limited in practice this week, I'm going to lean towards picking the Saints in this one, as I don't want to just wait and see if Trevor Lawrence plays or not. I'm going to pick the Saints, and if Trevor Lawrence plays, then it is what it is if I get this one wrong, because the full information is not fully out there yet. Then it is what it is. I'm going to pick the Saints and commit to it. Raiders and Bears, and this matchup seems like a messy one to a lot of people, and I don't think a lot of people want to talk about this game, but I do think it's important, as we are potentially going to see a quarterback battle that not a lot of people would expect. Jimmy Garoppolo is questionable with the back injury that he sustained last week against the Patriots. Justin Fields is doubtful with a hand injury. So undrafted rookie Tyson Bagent is slated to get his first career NFL start. And I always think that seeing guys that we don't expect getting their first starts, I think it's exciting and inspiring. For the Raiders, if Jim Garoppolo doesn't go in this game, which I'm honestly leaning towards him not playing this game, do they go with the rookie Aiden O'Connell or the journeyman in the NFL, Brian Hoyer? I think no matter who it is, between Aiden O'Connell or Brian Hoyer, Aiden O'Connell has seen at least a full game experience, and Tyson Bagent has not. Brian Hoyer has been a journeyman in the NFL. He's been a starting quarterback at one point. And the Raiders, they've won 2 in a row. Michael Mayer, the tight end, is starting to get involved in this Raiders offense as he had a few catches last week. A couple big plays for that Raiders offense. And I think Josh Jacobs is in line for a big game this week. I think the running games are going to have a big impact in this game. I'm going with the better running game in the Raiders. Also, the more experience at quarterback in the Raiders. And the better defense in the Raiders. And the Raiders' defense these last couple of weeks, they have played well. And I think they have what it takes to play well again. I'm picking the Raiders in a game that I feel like not many people are going to want to watch or talk about. But I still think it's great that we're going to see Tyson Bagent, in all likelihood, getting his first career start. Browns and Colts. The Browns are coming off of an emotional win over the 49ers. A very physical game, a low-scoring game. And I wonder, going on the road this week, after a big win like that, if they're going to start this game off slow and sluggish, as that sometimes happens. For the Colts, another loss to the Jaguars, and Anthony Richardson is likely out for the rest of the season. But Jonathan Taylor is starting to make his way back into the Colts offense slowly but surely. But I still think they're going to utilize Zach Moss the rest of the year, and why wouldn't they, as he is second in the league in rushing yards, only behind Christian McCaffrey. And I think this game could potentially come down to which team runs the football the best in this matchup. In a game that I do feel like is too tough for me to call, I want to pick the Colts to pull off the upset because I think the Browns, they look slow and sluggish in this game as they're coming off of that emotional victory. I just think the Browns are going to be reliant on their defense. Plus, the Browns are fourth in rushing offense, and with Deshaun Watson potentially being back this week, I'm going to pick the Browns. But if he's not, then I may consider backing the Colts in this matchup. But I will pick the Browns because I think they'll run the football a little bit better than the Colts will. Plus, I do think their defense will rise to the occasion once again this week. Bills and Patriots. Both of these teams are missing key pieces on their defense. So I do think that this could be a very interesting game here with the line being Buffalo minus 8.5. I would not be surprised if the Patriots covered in this game, as I do think they have what it takes to at least cover. The Bills, they lead the NFL in sacks. Stephon Diggs is third in receiving yards, only behind Tyreek Hill and A.J. Brown, which we're going to talk about the Dolphins and Eagles in a moment. But I am questioning Bill Belichick's attachment to Mac Jones, as there are a lot of Patriots fans that are wanting him to turn to Bailey Zappi or even Malik Cunningham. I do think Bill Belichick has an ego problem. But of course, I think this could be another topic for another day, but it's the fact that he drafted Mac Jones in the first round. I think if he didn't draft Mac Jones in round 1, if he had a quarterback that he drafted in round 3 or 4 that was struggling, then he wouldn't have as much of an attachment than he does to Mac Jones. And the Patriots are 27th in total offense. But the good news is Ramondre Stevenson is starting to get going in this Patriots offense. But I don't think it's enough. Even though the Bills offense has not been up to par in these last couple of weeks, I think they win this game. But the fact the Bills offense has not been up to par, I would not be surprised if the Patriots surprisingly covered in this game. But I think either way, the Bills are going to get the win. Commanders and Giants. The Commanders are coming off of a big win against the Falcons on the road, while the Giants are coming off of a game against the Bills that ended in heartbreaking fashion for the Giants, and in controversy. As we've seen a lot of games lately in primetime end in controversy, and it gets people talking. But the question is, who will be the quarterback for the Giants in this matchup? Is Daniel Jones going to return for this game? As Daniel Jones historically does well against the Commanders. Or will it be Tyrod Taylor? Now, Sam Howell has been solid this season for the Commanders so far. And I feel like the Commanders, I do think they are a bit of an underrated team. They were so close to beating the Eagles, they lost to them in overtime. However, the Commanders are 29th in total defense. And a big reason why they won last week was because of Desmond Ridder throwing 3 interceptions in that game. For the Giants, Saquon Barkley came back last week, and I think he is back with a vengeance. And their defense has been underrated in the last 2 weeks, as their defense has put the Giants in position to succeed, but the offense has not been able to get it done. But I am picking the Giants to beat the Commanders in this game, as I think the defense has confidence from the last 2 weeks. The offense just needs to put it together. And the Giants had what it took to beat the Bills last week, but just bad coaching decisions for the Giants is they had an opportunity to just take 3 points going to the half, and they ended up with nothing. And it ultimately was the difference in that game. I think the Giants, they bounce back, as whether it's Tyrod Taylor or Daniel Jones does historically well against the Commanders, and Tyrod Taylor, I'm rooting for Tyrod Taylor. Is every time he's been in the league, he's been one of those journeymen in the NFL. Just something happens to him, and I'm really rooting for him. I think Saquon Barkley is going to be a difference in this game, which is why I'm picking the Giants to beat the Commanders, pull off this upset. Falcons and Buccaneers, and depending on how Thursday Night Football goes, I think this game could be for first place in the NFC South, which is going to be crucial for whoever wins this game, because we saw what the NFC South was last season. And with the way the teams have been playing lately, it appears that this season will be the same result. Drake London and Kyle Pitts finally got used the right way for the Falcons last week, both being utilized in their offense. But will Arthur Smith and the Falcons continue to utilize Drake London and Kyle Pitts? Their defense finds themselves 4th in total offense, which I was not expecting. Even with the signings they made in the offseason, I wasn't expecting the Falcons to be a top 5 defense from a stat standpoint at this point in the year. A big reason why they didn't win last week was Desmond Ridder throwing 3 interceptions in that game. And I do feel like Arthur Smith has a bit of an attachment to Desmond Ridder. And I think a big reason for that is because of the Marcus Mariota comparisons that they had when he was drafted. I remember it. And I think he wants Desmond Ridder to be his Marcus Mariota. But he needs to cut down on the turnovers if the Falcons are going to win games. Because the defense has been giving everything they need to win games. But Ridder has not delivered. At least he hasn't delivered more than he has. Bijan Robinson has not scored a rushing touchdown yet this season. He's had 2 receiving touchdowns but no rushing touchdowns, and I do think he's due for one. But they go on the road this week to take on an underrated Tampa Bay team. And I like the Buccaneers in this game. The Falcons and Desmond Ridder. Desmond Ridder had his first home loss of his NFL career. And he is not good on the road. In fact, I do not think Desmond Ridder has won an NFL game yet on the road. I'm not 100% sure on that. But if he has won on the road before, it's probably only been maybe one time. And I don't think they went on the road here. I'm picking Tampa Bay, the underrated Buccaneers team, to win this one. Lions and Ravens, both teams coming off of wins last week. Lions over the Buccaneers and Ravens over the Titans in London. David Montgomery is out for this game for the Lions. Jahmyr Gibbs, questionable with a hamstring injury. But I do think if he plays, I think he is in line for a heavy workload in this Lions running game. I think that's what a lot of people want to see. As there's been a lot of questions on how come Jahmyr Gibbs hasn't been utilized in this Lions running game that much. It's been the David Montgomery show in the Lions running game all year long. Jameson Williams is getting back into things with the Lions offense after he was suspended for a few games for the sports betting. Jared Goff has had a good season so far. Dan Campbell is deserving of coach of the year at this point. I would honestly put him as the favorite right now for coach of the year. I don't know if he is the favorite right now, but he's got to be coach of the year. As the Lions, they are off to their best start in a very long time. And which Ravens team shows up for this matchup? Is it going to be the Ravens that lost to the Colts and Steelers? Or will it be the Ravens team that beat the Bengals and the Browns? As the Browns, they are first in total defense. And the Ravens, they did really well against that Browns defense. We saw Lamar Jackson throw for 2 touchdowns in that game to Mark Andrews. But I'm going to pick the Lions to win this game. I just think the Lions are a little bit more of a confident team right now than the Ravens are. The Ravens, I just don't know which Ravens team shows up for this matchup. As the Lions defense, they've also been holding their own this entire season so far. The one game they didn't was a high-scoring game against the Seahawks. But other than that, they've held their own the entire year. Steelers and Rams. Steelers coming off of their bye week. The Rams coming off of a win against the Cardinals, but it was not as dominant as you would think, as they struggled in the first half. Of the second half, they started to dominate. It looked like the Rams team have gotten used to seeing over the last couple of years. But the main focal point in that dominant performance in the second half, Kyren Williams, is out for this game, and backup running back Ronnie Rivers is out for a couple of weeks. So right now, it's looking like rookie Zach Evans is in line to be RB1 for the Rams this week. They did sign Darrell Henderson to their practice squad today. A big question I have for the Steelers, can Najee Harris bounce back? As Najee Harris struggled in the first half of the year last year, but then in the second half, he rose to the occasion. He started to step it up. TJ Watt is tied with Danielle Hunter for most sacks so far this season with 8. I think for the Steelers to win this game, their defense is going to have to give their offense a chance. When the Steelers defense is fully healthy, they have the upside of a top 5 defense in the league, one of the best in the league when fully healthy. But I do think this game is going to be more in Matthew Stafford's hands, with them being down to their RB3 being the RB1 for this week at least. Is Kyren Williams going to be out for this game, or will he be missing more time? But this is going to be a big opportunity for Zach Evans. I do think this could be a low-scoring game, but I do think the Rams, they win this one in the very end. As this was the one game this week that I've had a hard time picking. And it was just a judgment call for me. But I'm picking the Rams. I just think that last week, I think, was a confidence booster for the Rams. Cooper Kupp getting his first touchdown of the year. I think the Rams win a game that I do think can really go in either direction. It's really hard to predict which way the pendulum goes in this game, because the Steelers defense can easily keep them in this game from start to finish. But I think the Rams, they win a game that I think may end up being low scoring. I'll be surprised if there's a lot of points on the board in this one. Next up, we have the Cardinals and the Seahawks. The Cardinals, despite being where they're at right now in the season, we have seen them compete. They held their own against the Giants for most of the game. They held their own against the 49ers for some time. They beat the Cowboys. They held their own against the Bengals for as long as they could. And last week against the Rams, they held their own in the first half. The second half was a much different story last week for the Cardinals. And I think it's going to kind of tie into this game as well against the Seahawks for the Cardinals. I think they can easily hold their own, as they have some playmakers. We have seen Hollywood Brown have his moments this season so far. Micah Wilson has had some moments, the rookie out of Stanford. A receiver that I think is going to be the next Amon-Ra St. Brown, a receiver that was drafted later than what they should have been drafted, but they eventually start to break out. I think Michael Wilson is due to start breaking out. We saw a preview of that against the 49ers a few weeks back when he had 2 touchdowns. James Conner is on the IR, but I think the Cardinals, they'll compete in this game. Josh Dobbs has been really solid for the Cardinals so far this season, but I just think the later on this game gets, I think the better the Seahawks will be. Just like the Rams last week. The running game for the Rams, they looked unstoppable. Cooper Kupp got his first touchdown last week for the Rams. And we saw the Rams running game dominant. And it looked like the Rams offense that we have gotten used to seeing under Sean McVay. And I think Kenneth Walker and Zach Charbonnet, they're in for a big day against this Cardinals defense. I think the Seahawks get the win and bounce back after last week's heartbreaking loss against the Bengals. Packers and Broncos, both of these teams are well rested coming into this matchup. The Packers are coming off of their bye week, and the Broncos last played on Thursday night. For the Packers, what is the status of running back Aaron Jones? All we have seen from Aaron Jones this season has been in the season opener against the Bears and against the Lions in limited capacity. Other than that, Aaron Jones has been sidelined. And will he be back this week against the Broncos? And if he is back this week, are they going to put him in limited capacity just like we saw against the Lions? Or did the bye week help him get more healed? Because whoever is the running back for the Packers, whether it's Aaron Jones or A.J. Dillon, they could be in for a big day, as the Broncos are 32nd total defense. But not so fast. Despite being 32nd total defense this season, the Broncos are coming off of their best performance defensively since week 1 against the Raiders. You could honestly argue that it was their best defensive performance of the year, as the Broncos defense held their own in that game. But Russell Wilson, despite doing well from a stat standpoint coming to that game last week, he was part of the problem last week. Also, Sean Payton calling a timeout on 4th down before the half just to punt it away. And ultimately, it gave the Chiefs a chance to make a 60-yard field goal to have a bigger lead at halftime. But despite how the Broncos are doing on defense this year, I do think their performance from last Thursday night against the Chiefs, I think it can be a momentum builder, and I think it is. As the Packers are 28th in total offense, I am picking the Broncos to win this game, and I do think it will be very low scoring. I just think in a game that feels like it's tough to decide, as we have a team that is struggling defensively against a team that's struggling offensively. Russell Wilson has been okay stat-wise, but he just hasn't been able to get the job done. Part of it has been the defense, but the defense gave him opportunities last week and he didn't deliver. But I do think this week I think the Broncos, they deliver as a team and they get the win over the Packers. Chargers and Chiefs, when these two teams square off, it is more often than not a good game from start to finish. Justin Herbert and Patrick Mahomes. For the Chargers, Austin Eckler returned to the lineup last week. However, he was not as effective as I'm sure a lot of people were anticipating or wanted him to be. But I do think he is more in a full workload this week, as a lot of the times when you're coming off an injury or you haven't played in a while, it does take about a week or two to get things going. And I do think Austin Eckler, I think he gets back going this week. The Chargers are 31st in total defense, while they're 8th in total offense. But despite being 31st in total defense, Khalil Mack has stepped up for the Chargers in these last few weeks, as he has 7 sacks on the year. For the Chiefs, 4th in total offense, and despite the Chiefs' defense having some inconsistencies in the past, they find themselves sitting at 6th in total defense. And Travis Kelce, or should I say Mr. Taylor Swift, against the Chargers in his career, 88 receptions, 1,044 yards, and 7 touchdowns. And Travis Kelce recently against the Chargers, especially, he's had big performances. And I think he is in for another big performance this Sunday as well. And I am picking the Chiefs to win this game, as they have a more significant rest advantage than the Chargers do, as the Chiefs last played on Thursday night, while the Chargers are coming off of Monday Night Football against the Cowboys in a very physical game, in a game where the Chargers had a chance to send it to overtime or even win the game, but they couldn't deliver, which is why I like the Chiefs being more in a better state of mind right now than the Chargers. The Chargers coming off a heartbreak, while the Chiefs are coming off of a game that could be considered sloppy to their standards, but they have had more time to rest and rehabilitate and get more in a state of mind this week. I think the Chiefs are going to win this game, but the question is, will it be high scoring, though? As these are two good offenses, but the Chiefs' defense, they have shown that they can be up there with one of the best defenses in the league. I'm hoping for a high-scoring game, but I feel like it could be more in the middle. Either way, I think the Chiefs get it done. Sunday Night Football, Dolphins and Eagles, and I cannot wait for this one, as we have got the two best offenses in the NFL going at it. The Dolphins are first in total offense. The Eagles are second total offense. Tua Tagovailoa leads the NFL in passing yards. Tyreek Hill leads the NFL in receiving yards. A.J. Brown is second in the NFL in receiving yards. But one thing that sticks out to me in this matchup, Jalen Hurts so far this season, 7 interceptions this season, which is the second most in the NFL, only behind Jimmy Garoppolo with 8. Jalen Hurts has not exactly played the way that I'm sure a lot of people were anticipating, coming off of his big year last year. And the Eagles as a whole, they have not been playing the same way that they played last year. Last year, we're used to seeing the Eagles just dominate a bunch of teams, but this season, they have not been dominant. And against a high-octane offense like the Dolphins, a Dolphins team that can beat you 2 different ways, through the air or on the ground, and the Dolphins, they have the speed to their advantage. I do think, however, with the Eagles being at home, coming off their first loss this season, this is going to be a very angry Eagles team, and I think they're going to get it done in a high-scoring game. I do think the Eagles' defense is going to make some plays in this matchup, and in a back-and-forth game, I think the Eagles, they win it at the very end. So, I do think this will be a confidence booster for the Eagles moving forward. Even if they don't dominate against the Dolphins, I think at least winning a game of this magnitude, I think it will build some confidence, especially coming off of their first loss of the year, in a game where they feel like they should have won because Jalen Hurts throwing 3 interceptions, Jake Elliott missing a field goal in that game. Week 7 wraps up with Monday Night Football, 49ers and Vikings. And this matchup is honestly not as exciting as it was in the preseason. As when you look at this matchup, you see it's Monday night, you're thinking, okay, we're going to see arguably the best running back in the league in Christian McCaffrey against arguably the best receiver in the league in Justin Jefferson going head to head. But not anymore. Justin Jefferson is on the IR. Christian McCaffrey is questionable with an oblique/ribs injury. Deebo Samuel is also questionable this matchup with a shoulder injury. As McCaffrey and Samuel, they both left the game early last week against the Browns. And that is part of what did the 49ers in, losing last week. Also, their top offensive tackle, Trent Williams, is day-to-day with a high ankle sprain. So the 49ers are dealing with major injuries on their offense. However, the 49ers, they are still third in total defense. While even though I have been skeptical about the Vikings defense all season long, they still find themselves in the middle of the pack in total defense. Kirk Cousins is second in the league in passing yards, only behind Tua. Danielle Hunter is tied for the lead in sacks with TJ Watt, with 8 on the season so far. I do think if the 49ers are going to be without these key guys on offense, as much as I don't want to believe it, the Vikings could have a chance of pulling off this upset. But I still think the 49ers defense can hold their own in this matchup. Kirk Cousins is not the best in prime time. But I'm going to pick the 49ers to win this game. But don't be surprised if the Vikings win this game. Because any given week, as we saw just last week, you don't really know what's going on in the league until you actually see what happens. So I am going to pick the 49ers, but at the same time, don't be surprised if the Vikings pull off this upset, especially if they're without key playmakers on the offense. And that will do it for my Week 7 NFL predictions. Comment your picks down below. Like, share, comment, and subscribe. Enjoy the football this weekend. Until next time.